This may sound like shifting the ground. I don't think it is. You and I have both experienced, as people of advancing years would, health.
Advancing years?
Well, okay. At the same rate.
Yes, that's true. I'm older today than I've ever been.
You
too, I can see.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We've both experienced health crises, issues.
Yeah.
One of the effects it had on me, and I want to hear if it did so for you, was to drive me towards more basic commitment to spiritual disciplines. I'm still not very good at that, but particularly prayer, and not just going through prayers in the morning for Joe and Jane and Betty, but serious time spent in adoration and in struggling with God and so forth. I'm not there yet, don't worry. But is there a relationship between the commitment to these spiritual disciplines and not just resistance to, but engaging in the proper way with culture?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know that I'm going to wax eloquent or very specific on this. I agree with you totally. Last time I preached about when Peter, when Jesus says, "You're going to deny me," and Peter says, "No, I'm not. I'm more brave than anybody else in this room." And of course, he was the biggest coward. Mm-hmm. Last time I preached on that, I thought about this, and I realized that the reason why he was so unable to look into his heart and see the cowardice that was there, in other words, he really didn't know himself at all. I realized in a very subtle way, his identity was based more on his love for Jesus than Jesus' love for him. In other words, to say, "I'm the best of the disciples, I love you more than these," is basically a works righteousness. It's basically an identity still based on your performance. It's still basically it's still a worldly identity. And as a result, because his identity was built on being the bravest disciple, when he looked into his heart, he had to screen out the cowardice that was there. He just couldn't see it. And then, of course, he was completely unprepared for how weak he really was. And instead, he should have been building his identity on Christ's love for him. That's very subtle. That's incredibly subtle. And I got to tell you that almost every one of us in ministry of any kind are probably doing something like that, more than we would like to think. And it's not a matter of either or. It's a kind of both and. And only through spiritual disciplines do you take yourself by the scruff of the neck and remind yourself of this, and it becomes emotionally real to you in prayer, that you're able to not fall back into the, my identity is basically a kind of religious identity rather than a gospel grace identity. And almost every day you have to pull yourself back, and the only way that happens is through prayer and the disciplines. So that's as much as I'll say. The identity isn't like, oh, I get it, now I'll root my identity in Christ. You have to reroot yourself every single day, every day, or you will be cast down by your own failures, disappointments. You'll be oversensitive to criticism. You'll need cultural approval too much, or you'll be too angry at the culture and feel like I've got to be in a kind of pharisaical, ceremonial, purity way, just completely separate from it.